Overtaking was a challenge.
Yeah. So like you were saying, it's in dynamic you have to pick the right place and the right time to do it.
Yeah.
Because if you mess up, you're going to the gravel or you're getting overtaken again in the next corner because it's so wide that even the overtaking person can still get a lot of speed out of a corner.
That's correct. Yeah.
It's not like you see a karting track at like the UK or the US. It's really tight, and so if you make a move, you can basically force your opponent near the outside and force them to back off. And so because of that, they lose speed and they lose the chance to sort of get back at you.
Yeah.
But at Dynam, it's so wide, you can't really force someone wide because it's like a huge track. Because at Dynam, they race like motorcycles as well.
That's one. And
so it's like a really big track. And so when I go for the move, I basically go around the hairpin, but then the person could either stick around or like they could go over under.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it's easy to make that first move, but it's hard to make it stick and make it stick like well enough to sort of pull a gap. And so, but yeah, basically at the end of the first heat sprint, the qualifying heat, I realized my race pace was strong. I was fast. I was setting consistent lap times much faster than they were, like a 104, 104, 104, 104.
Yeah.
But I just needed to make sure like I could get a move done.
Yeah.
So I think the second heat, it was like way after the first heat, because after the first heat they have to do the endurance racing.
Race. Yeah.
And when you do endurance race, like 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's the second heat. Yeah. And so during that second heat, it was a decent start. I was running third behind Tan and Shang, but we kept exchanging positions basically.
So
because
like back and forth.
Yeah, I'll go for a position. I get the move done, but then like down the straight, he would get that slipstream again because it's such a long straight that you basically actually want to be behind the person, because it's almost like a immediate overtake if you're close enough to them. And so I realized, okay, there's no point like for me to keep going for moves. But then like I made a big mistake where down the straight, I think it was like 3 wide at some point. We were like really close at the braking point for that. Yeah, so like basically there's straight and there's that curve, and then that's that first braking point.
Open-handed, right?
Yeah. And so I tried to go for a move with Mr. Tan, but I didn't realize how close he goes when he defends.
Yeah.
And so I tried to go for a move, but because of that, like he was so close that I had to brake way too hard for the corner, and because of that I ended up spinning around again.
Oh, so you locked up?
Yeah, so I locked up because like the braking point there is like really difficult.
Yeah.
And so I made a big mistake. I locked up, and because of that, I think Hang was following really close behind me as well. And so when I made a mistake, he like swerved to avoid, but like he swerved like into the gravel, and because of that, like basically 2 of our races were ruined.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Fung Le passed both of us.
Yeah.
And so I managed to get him back like the next lap.
Yeah.
So I was second, so technically it was a gain in position, but like I felt really bad for Kang, who basically had his race ruined because of my mistake.
Yeah.
And so I came over, I apologized to him. I was like, okay, that's my bad, man. It wasn't too bad though. He was like back in third, like in the next race immediately, basically. So basically I realized, okay, I'm too inexperienced to make these sort of like late lunges, and so I need to be a bit more patient. I was being too aggressive. I was just like trying to attack them, and I was losing us all time.
Right.
Because there was basically 3 drivers all trying to go for the lead of the race.
Yeah.
And they're both really strong drivers. So even if I overtake them, there's no guarantee I can pull away.
You can keep the position.
Because that slipstream is so strong, right?
Yeah.
And especially for these 4-stroke karts, like the slipstream is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
And so for the final heat, I basically, okay, I'm gonna keep my head down, just try and stay close to them, and when the time is right, I'll go for a move. Just stay patient behind them. There's no need to constantly attack. And so the start of the second sprint, the final sprint, it was a good start. And me and Tan got a good start, and then there was like someone in 4th place. I don't remember who, but he had like a really powerful engine, and then, like he got all of us at the start.
Wow.
So he was at the lead at the start of the race, but then like at the breaking point, we all passed him again because like he's a bit more inexperienced than all of us.
Yeah.
But like I don't know how he had such a good start every time. But after that, the order I think was Tan, me, and Kang. So Kang got a really good start as well, and so he was able to pass I think all the other people, and so the running order was back to how it usually was. And so after that, I decided, okay, now I'm gonna just follow Tan because he's really fast, and I think me and Tan were like a bit faster than Kang, and so I realized, okay, it's going to be much more simple if it's just me in first place instead of like me first place and then Kang behind us as well, all fighting.
Right.
So I decided, okay, you first place, you go do what you do. I'm just gonna follow you, and we're gonna try to pull away from third place a bit. And so I just kept following him. I didn't make a move. I used the slipstream to sort of get alongside him, tell him that I'm here.
Yeah.
Sort of scare him into defending a bit.
Yeah.
Because when he defends, he goes a bit slower, right? And so that lets me follow him for much longer. And so after a few laps, I think if you saw in the videos and the photos, we started pulling really far away from Kang, who started to fall back a bit. And so after like a few laps, I was like, okay, it's now just me and him. I'm just gonna keep following him, wait until the very few last laps before I start going for things. And so
you kept the pace.
yeah, I kept the pace up with them.
You don't try to push. You don't fall back. You keep the pace, and then you wait for the right timing to go for it.
So basically, I think my mom had a recording, but like basically, a lot of times in the straight, he would go and I'd just be right behind him, and like I'd go right beside him and I look at him like, okay, I'm right here, you know. I can go for a move anytime I want, but you can keep going. And so every time we got to a breaking point, he would sort of go towards the inside of it, try to defend. Because he wasn't really sure when I was going to go for that move.
Right.
Because he saw me like in the last move, I was like really aggressive. I'd basically go for every gap.
Yeah.
So he was like overly defensive, which was his mistake.
And that made him lose time.
And I made him lose time. Basically made it really easy for me to stick with them.
Yeah.
Basically, even if he wasn't defending, I would like be able to stay close.
You were like literally bumper to bumper.
But like when he defends, I'm like just right there behind him, consistently lap after lap. And so I think on the last lap, I was trying to go for moves. The first hairpin, I tried to go for a move, but it didn't quite work out. I bumped into him a little bit, and I would have taken position, but I was like, okay, I bumped into him. That might be a penalty, so I'm gonna let him pass just to avoid that risk. And then I would just follow him behind him again. And so this was the last lap, right? And at some point, the gap looked a bit big, so I was like, okay, this might not actually work out. So I have to be a bit more aggressive. So I followed him throughout the few corners. And I realized basically throughout the race, I realized at the last section, where it's right before the straight, that's where I'm fastest. That's where I'm gaining time on all of them. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, that's where I'm gonna make my move. So through the chicane, the fast chicane, you can't overtake there, but you can get really close to someone.
Yeah, you can.
And then when you're close to someone, they'll hear your engine. They might not be looking at you, but they'll hear your engine. And Mr. Tan realizes that like a lot of overtakes were happening at the hairpin right before the chicane. I mean right after the chicane. And so after the chicane, he went really defensive, really down the inside, and I went super wide on the outside. I didn't really go for a move. I just went really far on the outside, as like wide as possible. Then because he went inside, he went deep because that corner is a really difficult corner.
Yes.
And you go into it with so much speed that if you go too far to the inside, you lose a ton of time at the exit.
Yeah.
And so because of that, he went wide at the exit. I cut back. I wasn't quite side to side with him yet, but in the next few corners, if you get a bad exit at the hairpin, you'll get a bad exit at all the rest of the corners because it's so close. Because it's a hairpin, then a right, then a left.
So you got the inside.
So then I went
the inside on the elbow. That would make you having the inside on the right-hander.
Yeah.
And that set you up for the right.
So basically, hairpin went wide. I went wide. He went in.
Yeah.
He had a bad exit on the hairpin.
Yeah.
So he went really wide, which puts him on the inside corner for that left-hander.
Yeah.
And I was on the outside. But when you're on the outside, you have a much better exit than the person on the inside for that corner.
Yeah.
And so because of that, he turned in. He was really slow, right before the last corner basically, and I was like super fast on like a lot of closing speed. And so when he went for the that last corner, that last right-hander, it's a really wide corner. Yes. And so okay, this is it. I will go for the move now. And so when he went in, I was like, okay, I have a lot of closing speed. I'm going to put myself right in that apex.
Yeah.
I basically stole the apex from him, forced him to like stay out, and I overtook him in that last corner. And so there's a recording out there, but it didn't capture the overtake, but it saw like at the very end, I was like really close to, like we were really close to each other. and so I won like a really small margin. But I was really proud of myself for that because
you should.
That was a really that last race I think was much more strategic than the first two, because the first two sprints, okay, I'm just gonna go for whatever I have. But the last sprint I realized, okay, that's not the way to go.
Right?
I have to wait and just see where I'm fastest and take advantage of that. And so despite like my inexperience in overtaking, and I was a lot less experienced than both of them, right? I still managed to win because I realized strategically that it's better to stay behind and then wait for that last moment, because I realized during the race that Mr. Tan, he is very aggressive with his overtakes as well. So he doesn't sit behind you for very long. He makes sure you know that he doesn't sit behind you for very long. And so I realized, okay, I'm not gonna be able to stay like ahead of him if I'm leading. So it's better to stay behind him, stick close, and then overtake him where he can't overtake me back.
Right.
And so because of that, I was able to win.
Wow. I mean, that's like really, really nice to hear, because, you know, I'm hearing a lot of different things. You know, I'm hearing inexperience, but I'm also hearing such a high level of theory coming from Ben. Like, you say that you are inexperienced at karting, but your theory level, I think it has to be at least club level, or if not higher. Because, you know, like, just to backtrack, when you said, you know, during your battle with Tang, you said you could have overtaken. You showed yourself. You're like, hey, I'm here, but you're not overtaking.
Yeah.
That is playing with somebody else's mentality, and that is one of the best ways to be able to secure an overtake. Because you know why? You're not forcing yourself. You are forcing somebody else to make an error. You're waiting for him to make a mistake, which is what he did. He went a little bit defensive. Defensive means less speed. He may have the apex, but you get a better line on it. And I think that secured the win for you.
Yeah.
You know, and so, yes, I'm hearing, you know, this is really cool, because I'm hearing somebody who says, I've only driven karts 3 times, and then your level of theory is like up there. So, props to that. Dude.
I think it helps that I watch a lot of motorsports, because in MotoGP, right, one of my favorite riders is Valentino Rossi. I think everyone loves Valentino Rossi.
Yeah.
And one of his favorite things to do was to sort of just get side to side with someone in the straight and just say, I'm right here, but I'm not gonna go for that yet. And then he'd like to sort of overtake towards the end of the race.
Yeah.
I think like most famously like Catalonia, they were going side to side and he overtakes in the last corner. There's a quote, and not quote, but like there's just a moment. I think it was Assen 2002. So there was the Dutch Grand Prix for 2002 for MotoGP.
Yeah.
And Valentino Rossi, he was behind Alex Barros for a lot of the race. But there were a lot of moments where he was like down the straight and he was like right there next to Barros, but then he would like fall behind again, right behind him. And then a lot of the commentators were saying like he's slowing himself down. That bike has much more top speed than that. He's definitely just like sort of showing up next to him. It's like, alright, I'm right here. You better be aware of me. And then he's falling back behind and waiting for like an error.
Waiting for an error, or like waiting for time to strike, right?
And so I sort of took inspiration from that. It's like, okay, I know he likes to look around and see, and like he goes defensive very often. So I'm just gonna like get beside him, show him that like, okay, I'm here, and you should go defensive because I'm gonna make a move sometime. And so because of that, he kept going defensive into like multiple corners. And so because of that, I was able to just stick with them really closely, and it all led up to that final moment.
Yep. Wow. You know, you're making a lot of cross-referencing to like different motorsports as well. So I can see that the passion is really deep for it. You know, after taking the win, what are your next goals in karting, or perhaps in motorsports?
I think for my next goal, I really want to sort of, I guess, move up to a much higher level. So, of course, I want to get my FIA karting license first, which means I have to participate in more like more races, like with FRV here. So, any sort of races they have or championships, I want to partake in. Not quite this month because they have a few races this month, but I can't go because I'm busy. But maybe definitely next year, maybe Southern Open Championship or IKC 2025, I'll definitely show up.
Yeah. So you like to elevate your career in order to get the license, but then what happens after the license?
After the license, I think it's like international, like
go
to the UK, go to the US, find races, partake in it. just meet new people as well while I'm at it.
Cool. I mean, it sounds like that karting is going to be, you know, a starting point for you, and also a conversation starter as well for you to find new friends, right? That's what you say. So I can see that karting is not only, you know, is not only something that you enjoy doing, but it's something that you want to really invest yourself in and make that become part of your personality as well. Motorsports in general.
Yeah.
That's really cool to hear. Yeah. I mean, FRV has lots of tournaments, and I think we will be able to accommodate you for a coaching session as well, in order for you to gain more of that confidence in overtaking and braking, knowing what you're capable of, really pushing your limits, and as well, you know, helping you achieve that FIA license. What are some key pointers that you can share to people who are new to the sport? Because just like yourself, like, you know, you also within the, let's just say, most recently you've just had the pleasure of sitting in a kart for the very first time, into now winning your first cup. What do you think? What are some key pointers and tips and tricks that you can point out to the people out there who are looking to enjoy the sport?
Definitely, for me, the most important is just preparation. So do whatever you can to just learn as much as you can before you sort of partake.
Yeah.
If it's not so serious, like if you just like driving for fun, then maybe not a huge emphasis on researching. But like if you want to like do this seriously, if you want to like win races, then you're gonna have to learn a lot, because there's always gonna be people who are more experienced than you, people who may be faster than you, but and experience and speed is something you can only really make up for with practice.
Yeah.
But having wheel knowledge and sort of understanding the mechanics of a go-kart and like the racing and all of the theory behind that is very, very valuable. Even if you're still inexperienced, like me, I was really inexperienced, but like the fact that I understood racing mechanics, like driving to the limit, driving to like the slip angle of your wheels and everything like that. The fact that I knew that, even if I wasn't like quite experienced to apply it all directly, it was still very valuable to have that just in the back of my mind, so that I know how to improve myself. And so, practice is one thing, but having the theory to back up what you know, to back up your practice, is incredibly valuable. And I don't think like there's any really substitute to just researching.
Research, learn. That's the first part.
And after that is practicing. Practice. But there needs to be a system to your practice. You can't just go out there and just drive endlessly, because you're not going to improve at that rate. You have to set yourself some small goals.
Yes.
Like I did for the first Sunday before I went to IKC, like before the week before IKC, my goal was just I learned the track, learn the kart, see where my pace is. That was my goal, and I figured that out. And then the Saturday before the IKC, I was like, okay, now my goal is to sort of figure out this new layout, find my braking points and my acceleration points, and then find my pace, get consistent pace. And then once I got to that, the practice before the race on the same day, it was okay, let's set consistent pace, like try to be within the same second for every lap. And so it was just these small like goals that I worked towards each time that helped me sort of find myself and not get lost while preparing, because go-karting is extremely overwhelming for like people who are new. There's so much behind it, there's so much like things to learn. But if you give yourself a system to follow and your own sort of goals, it is much better. And so that's what I recommend. First, research, get that knowledge into your brain. You might not be able to apply it directly, but it's still extremely important to have that. And so when you have that knowledge, it is better. Your practice will be much better, because you'll know
you can apply it, right?
Yeah, because I'm not very experienced, but I like watching these videos, and they all have like this advice, and it's basically just there in the back of my mind when I'm practicing. It's like, okay, a lot of people say you need to brake a bit stronger, but like you have to be really firm on the pedal as you trail off. You can't just trail off really quickly. Yeah. So like it's these small like tips and knowledge that I have at the back of my brain because of the research that I'm able to sort of improve and find where to improve while I'm practicing, instead of having to like waste time driving and then being lost. Like, why am I so slow? Like, if you have the research, you'll know, oh, I'm slow because I'm not doing this properly. I'm not having the right exit. I'm not having the right braking. I'm not taking the right line. And so it's really a combination of having that knowledge and then that practice.
Practice, right?
And also, I think it's important just to meet and talk to people. When I was at IKC, I talked to like basically every racer there for like, even if it was just brief, like conversation, just get to know that person. And I think before the IKC, I also did a lot of like researching the competition, seeing who I was racing, seeing what their pace may be like. And so I was just observing. So I think a lot of people, I got a lot of weird looks from people because I was just like snooping around, looking at people. And during the endurance, I was like timing people as well. So actually, Mr. Tan, when he was running the endurance, I was actually keeping track of his lap time with my phone, just to see, okay, what's his long run pace like, and so on and so on. And so when you have that sort of information, you can sort of strategize your race a lot more. And so, like, while I was inexperienced, I was able to use my knowledge that I like did from researching and also from scouting like people.
Yeah.
I was able to formulate that into like an actual like strategy for my race.
Yeah. So lots of learning, guys. Lots of learning.
Lots of learning.
So after you've learned, you have time to practice.
Apply what you learned.
Yeah, apply what you learned. And then we also have, you said, we also have, what was it?
Looking at like just observing other people as well.
A lot of observation. And so gathering data.
Talk to the other person.
Yeah.
Trying to scout a bit of like information. What lines are they taking? Stuff like that.
Yeah. 3-pointers, guys. That's the secret to becoming a champion.
IKC champion.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, Ben. I think a lot of new viewers and even a lot of people who have already started the sport will find a lot of valuable, pointers and topics in our today's talk. So, once again, FRV congratulates you. Congratulations on your cup. And yeah, we'll look forward to the next races with you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, I also have a gift for you.
Oh.
After I won, I think Okini Foods wanted to sort of like sponsor me for a year, and so they gave me a lot of. They're offering me free food for 1 year of their products, and so this will be a gift because of your hosting.
Thank you so much.
And just being here today.
Thank you, guys. From Okini Foods. Thank you so much, Okini.